I guess I'm kind of right now in between. Is it because it was never worth it to me to go through those things and it just wasn't like what I really wanted? So when things got too rocky or too hard, I just chose to move on.
83% of Americans identify as not very happy, which can hold you back and negatively affect your relationships and your business. On this podcast, we discuss the proven steps to happiness so you can restore balance and rekindle your joy.
Welcome to another episode of How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs. I hope your day is going absolutely amazing. We have a really cool guest. Welcome, Tadi, to the show.
Thank you, Brad. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, we're going to do something a little bit different today because I usually don't jump into the stories until partway into the show. But you have got such an amazing story. We met at a mastermind a couple months back. I want the listeners to understand you're this prolific real estate investor. Has it always been that way? Did you grow up and just have a bunch of money and just always do real estate investing?
No, no, you're funny. Thank you for that. I definitely did not start out as a real estate investor. Actually, when I was 19, I got my real estate license. I cold called for like 6 months and got nothing. And I was like, real estate is fake. It doesn't work. And I went into the regular workforce in Vegas. I started waitressing. So I had my son, got married, started waitressing. And I really always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I would start these little side hustles and businesses, and everything would always fail. And, waitressing worked. I made good money. I worked on the strip. So I was just kind of like, maybe I'll keep working here until something works or doesn't. And then COVID happened. So when COVID happened, everyone got laid off. I had my son. I was a single mom, and I was kind of like, okay, I got to figure this out. Unemployment's like $300 a week. And I came across these videos on YouTube about wholesaling real estate. So I did all the things. I got bandit signs. I maybe for 2 weeks cold called people in Vegas and felt the same way. I was like, this actually doesn't work. It's fake. Everyone's hanging up on me and cussing me out. And then I saw this YouTube video from a guy, and he was virtual wholesaling, calling in a different city. So I started kind of binge watching those. And the next day I got a list in Ohio. Crazy thing, I got 6 deals my first month. So it was a complete life 360 in a month. And I know that is very not typical. Now that I've been doing this for years, it was like just the craziest, luckiest newbie month. And it worked for me. And I kept doing it. And here we are 4 years later. I've done like 200 deals in 9 states. Here in Kansas City, buying commercial real estate and building my business. And I'm still a single mom, and it's been a complete paradigm shift for me. And now I guess, new levels, new devils.
This is what an amazing story, Tadi. So let's go back to your 19 years old. You have a young child, and you say you're making good money. What does that mean? What's good money as a waitress?
So 19 is when I got my real estate license. I had my son at 21. So good money as a waitress for me, like if there was a big event like Lady Gaga or someone was in town, we could make like $400-500 in one night waitressing on the strip. On a regular night, probably like 150-250. So I'm, making a couple grand a week, and I'm a really like good saver. That was always my thing. I was always like the one out of all my friends who at least had like $500. And so I saved a lot of my money. So when I got laid off, I was really thinking maybe I should just buy a rental property. I had like $18,000 or something saved up. And I was like, maybe I should try to put this down on a rental property. And that's when the wholesaling videos came up, because I started going in this like real estate wormhole. Really weird. Wholesaling just seemed like income. And I was like, let me just try this before I blow my whole savings account. And that's kind of what came out of it.
So you're making, if I'm doing the math right, you're probably making like $75,000 a year.
Not really, just because there was, like, a lot more slow nights. So I would probably say, like, 55K,
Okay.
like 50, 55K. Yeah.
Okay, but you're saving money, you get laid off. What was your mental, what were your emotions like on that day that you got laid off? Were you okay because you had money, or were you like, "Oh, shit"?
No, realistically, with the way my bills were, I was gonna be broke in 4 months. And COVID, nobody knew what was happening. It seemed like the potentially the end of the world too at that time for me. So it was kinda like, um, what am I gonna do? Like, how am I gonna survive? Everyone had these plans of like, "Oh, I'm just not gonna pay rent." About a month into it, I think everybody around me had kinda, like, settled into their plans of what they were gonna do, and it just wasn't okay with me. I was like, "I have to figure out a way to make money." I felt like, if I don't figure out a way to make money right now, I'm gonna die, and I couldn't do DoorDash or go work at a grocery store. That's the only thing that was available at that time. So, I worked in a call center when I was, like, 16, 17. I was like, "If I could have did that then, I can turn my bedroom into a call center and just try this."
Wow. So you were yeah, so I guess the mental state was, "I gotta get a job or I'm gonna die," and
Yeah.
you took action, and now you mentioned 200 and something plus deals in 4 years. Um, I don't want you to tell your income, but I'm thinking that you might be making more in a small period of time, in a month or so, than you made an entire year back then. Is
Yes.
it somewhere close?
Yes. In my first year full-time wholesaling, like, assignment fees closed was over 350,000. So it was kinda like, this is crazy that this is something real and available to people and everyone's not doing it. Like, I don't understand what rock I was living under, that I didn't know making $10,000 a month was, like, easy, really easy. And I had no idea. And I don't know, it's just so weird now to think there was a time that, like, $5,000 a month seemed like a lot to me.
So why were you so successful? Are you smarter than all the other waitresses out in the world?
Honestly, no, it was just the fact that I just sat there for like 10 hours a day cold calling. That was it. I had so many conversations in such a short amount of time. It was like, if anybody did that, I think anybody could have similar result. I know you're not supposed to say that, so results not typical, whatever. But honestly, I do, from my heart, believe that if you sit and do something for 10 hours a day, you're gonna get good at it very fast.
Yeah, there's proof in that, right? I think Malcolm Gladwell wrote about it in Outliers, the 10,000 hour rule. Do anything for 10,000 hours, but what we often encounter are, we get to the, I pick an hour, the 2000th hour or the 200th hour, and it's just like this shit, just like you did when you were 19. You're like, this is too tough. I'm giving up. Jack Canfield went to 141 publishers before one granted him the publication of Chicken Soup for the Soul. So yeah, it's about persistence, right? There's a saying that I used to love. I don't love it as much because I'm not. I used to think wealth and money was everything in life, and obviously it's not now, or it never was. I just thought that because of my unwhole self. But there was a saying I used to love that said, "Getting wealthy isn't hard. It's just doing things other people aren't willing to do." Right? Who is willing to go sit 10 hours in cold call? Not many people. So for the person that's listening to this, whether they're a waitress or a waiter or whatever, they're making $50,000 in the United States, they're probably struggling financially to some degree. What advice do you have for that person?
So the reason this worked is, I believe, is purely because of the time I put into it. While I was waitressing, I started an Amazon FBA business. I bought 2 different products. A lot of them too, 5,000 SKUs of one product I bought. I spent a lot of my waitressing money trying to start these businesses, and I wouldn't put time into them. I would work all day and I'd come home and try to spend 2 hours learning Google PPC, and I would try to learn, I love learning, so the learning part wasn't hard for me, but I'd never put time into anything I ever tried to do. And when I succeeded in real estate, when I really thought, what was the only difference? The only difference was I put time into this. And it sounds so silly and so simple, but I hate to say it. It's just the truth about anything. I was like 260 pounds at one point when I had my son. The only difference to lose almost 100 pounds was I put time into it. I put time into walking a lot. The only difference ever is just doing the thing, and it sucks because nobody wants to do the thing. Like we want to like read all these books and download it and it just start happening. But between knowledge and the result is the action. And the cool thing is, it's not like I had to cold call for 10 hours for 10 years. It was just like a 6-month period. And then I hired a bunch of cold callers and I just started closing. And that's just how life is. When I lost 100 pounds, I didn't have to walk for an hour and 45 minutes for the rest of my life. It was just to get to the goal. And then I was able to like regulate it, do something that was more balanced and maybe I don't make $1 million, but maybe you make $1 million and the next time you make 600,000, but you're doing it at a comfortable pace because now you know the formula to what you're doing. And it's hard to really get the formula down if you don't get the reps in. So it's like, it's the most simplest thing. It's the most basic thing. Just do it over and over and over and over. And that's, note to myself as well. When I go to do something new, I get in that same mindset, like, what's going to be the hack or the thing that's going to get me there? And it's like, well, you can have hacks and things, but you're still going to just have to do it.
So, I mean, it is simple, right? But it really is amazingly powerful. Just spend time on the thing. What is priority? So I'm in a fortunate position where my real estate company runs without me. And I do this coaching, happiness coaching full time. And I typically get to the gym between 6 and 7:30 in the morning. And I usually leave at 11. And I've become a pickleball addict. And I'm playing with these folks, and not many of them want to put in the time. They just want to come play. I am searching really hard, and I've just found a couple drilling partners because I was just thinking it's better for me to drill for an hour or two a day than play for an hour or two a day because I love it so much. I want to get really, really great at it. But you're right. It's the 10,000 hour rule. Just go focus on, there was two kind of lessons in that. One is to get good at pickleball, you got to work, but I'm in the best shape of my life. Why? Because I focus on the time. And then someone's going to say, well, you're lucky. You've got money and you can focus on the time. But you didn't have money. You were 4 months from, you thought, death and complete despair, right? But you found the time. Every single individual has 24 hours in a day. How do you use your time? Oh, I don't have time to go to the gym. But that same person has time to be on their phone, on scrolling TikTok or watching TV for an hour or two. You've got the time. It's just what's your priorities. So we're going to take the steering wheel of this big bus and we're going to turn directions completely. You went to unlocklimitlessyou.com, our website, unlocklimitlessyou.com/quiz, and you took our famous self-love quiz. And we've already talked. I normally wouldn't share anyone's results, but you're like, yes, I'm open to anything. So we're going to talk about the quiz and we're going to talk about your results. I'm going to start on the big picture. And the big picture is you scored mild self-love. So the options are lack of self-love, mild self-love, or extreme self-love. So what did you think when that mild self-love came back?
I felt like, yeah, that's probably accurate.
Probably accurate. Did you always have mild self-love?
No, I think I had like poor self-love for a long time. I think I also had high self-love at a time too. I think it's fluctuated during periods of my life.
So let's talk about the lack of self-love. Let's talk about what was it like growing up?
So I grew up in an Ethiopian household. So, no outside of our culture and family, friends allowed, very, very sheltered. Never went to like sleepovers or movies. I never really socialized with people. It was like my sister, my cousins, books are your friends, super academic, very hard academic. A lot of love. Like my parents love me a lot, but their love was always like sacrifice. They worked all day, both of them, pretty much my whole life. So we didn't see them a lot, but the whole story is, and it's the truth, but they came to this country for us to have a better life. So that was kind of the vibe in the house.
So thank you for sharing that with me. You said a couple of things I want to pull the thread on. Academically, I think you said very hard. Tell me about that. What does that mean?
You can't have anything less than straight A's.
Can't have anything less than straight A's. Okay.
AP, honors, go. Like just be the best.
Okay. So I had a client recently that had something similar. And his presenting problem was he didn't feel enough. So he lacked self-love. And when you lack self-love, oh my, it doesn't just affect one area of your life. It affects relationships, business, health, everything. And when we pulled back the curtains and we did the work, same thing. Like no one was beating him. He wasn't locked in a cage. He wasn't like, had food withheld. It's just his mother doing what she thought was best, had a very stringent policy on you got to get A's or B's or else, right? What do you think that a kid would think when the parent was always on them about grades? You got to do better. You got to do better. How do you think the child internalizes that?
Definitely is as not good enough, 100%. And the thing well, so, I mean, I come from an African household, so we got whooped bad. Like, it wasn't the discipline side of my childhood was super extreme, I think. Now that I'm a mom, like, it's just a totally different, culture. And I love my parents, but, like, our culture is rough, and I understand that's what it takes to survive in Ethiopia. It takes different things to survive in Ethiopia than the United States. So they had to, in my mind, like, I forgive my parents fully because I understand their parents raised them in a certain way to survive. Then they went and raised me in the way they thought they need to for me to survive. The world there is a lot rougher than the world here,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
So
just a totally different parenting style.
So Toddy, I mean, this is what often happens when I work with clients. A lot of clients will come to me and they'll have an issue, depression, addiction, working too much. And we'll start talking about childhood and they'll be like, well, my childhood was great. My parents were loving. And then I start talking and the layers start coming and you are giving me some really great information to discuss, right? To talk about. Bad grades. Like if you don't, you got to do better, better, better. How does a kid internalize that? Well, I'm not enough. All of this stuff that I'm going to talk about, by the way, this is not your parents' fault, just like you said. They
Yeah.
did the absolute best they could. And they were good parents, but it doesn't mean that their actions didn't affect you and the other, thousands of people that are listening to this. And the point of doing all this is for someone else to be like, oh my gosh, that happened to me. And oh my gosh, now I know why I drink too much. Now I know why my marriages suck. Now I know why I'm 60 pounds overweight. That's the whole purpose of this podcast, is to give back and for people to be like, you're coming on here being vulnerable and someone's going to hear the story and be like, light bulbs are going to be flashing off. They're going to be like, oh my God, that's why I can't stop eating or drinking or yelling at my kids. So you've given me 3 now, like major things. Grades, not enough. Your parents beat you. My dad beat me as well with a belt. You are a little child. What is the one thing a parent is supposed to do over everything? They are supposed to protect you. They are supposed to love you. They are supposed to hear you. What do you think happens when a child gets physical pain and shame inflicted on them? How do they internalize that?
That you don't love me for sure.
And you don't love me because
I'm bad. I'm not enough.
I'm bad. I'm not enough. I'm unlovable, right? That meaning that you placed and that I placed on my life, that helped us survive as a child. But when you're 47 years old and your second wife, the marriage doesn't work and you smoke weed every day and drink and you buy a 42-foot boat to take it to the Bahamas to try to prove you're enough, it doesn't work well.
Right.
So the whole point of this is to show every negative behavior in someone's life, bad relationships, addiction, depression, anxiety, is being driven by something that your brain thinks is even worse. And in our case, it was, I'm not enough. So I'm going to smoke weed every night. I'm going to drink because I'm going to feel better. Even though it's negative, it's going to keep me from feeling this is not enough. So the magic is what we do is we go and we show the brain that it was never about you. This had nothing to do with you. It's how your parents felt about themselves. And now you can show your brain, hey, I can be myself. I don't need to get hit. Or if someone is mean to me, it's not because I'm unlovable, it's their issue. And then literally your brain rewrites that new neural pathway and then everything changes. So you've obviously done some of this work. We'll talk about that in a second. But I wanted to mention the third thing because I hear this all the time. My parents were gone all the time. Again, It's always our fault as kids, because if we can control it, then if we can just be better or be good enough, then mom and dad won't be. If a child's parents are always gone and they're working, do you think the child at 6 years old, before their logical brain has formed, says, "Oh, it's okay, mommy and daddy aren't here because they're working to provide a better life for me"? Do you think a child says that?
Typically, no, but we did just because our parents said it every day. It was like our like our programming, you know what I mean? They're doing this for a better life. They came here for a better life. Like that is our programming as like first gen kids. I think a lot of times from any country when I talk to and meet first generation kids, it's like we accept anything our parents did because we know they like trekked here for this better life. And we have it pretty sweet compared to our family that's still in that other country. So I think yeah, but internally as a kid, I probably was like, where are they? Like, I'm
Yeah,
always alone.
you
We're over
got
here like lighting stuff on fire on the stove and just like having all this crazy stuff happen all the time.
Toddy, you explained it so well. Your conscious brain, and at 20 something years old, however old you are, can now see that, oh, I heard that a lot. But at 6 years old, you can't even reason. You don't have a logical brain. So it's likely that your young brain is saying what you just said. Where are my parents? Why are they gone? And
Yeah.
why would a kid think, oh, my parents are always gone?
Yeah.
Because, because,
They're always gone.
because why? What does that have to do with you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a hard one. I guess I'm trying to put myself back in my 6-year-old
You
self. What
you can't, you really can't, though, because
Yeah.
unless we put you in hypnosis, your conscious brain can't go there. Your
Yeah.
unconscious brain likely is gonna say, "My parents weren't here because they didn't love me, there was something wrong with me." And I promise you, I'm gonna get a ton of negative feedback from this, but you can hate on me, but it's the truth. When you're a little kid and your dad or mom are never there, they're not at your soccer game, they're not at your birthday party, you
Oh, for
internalize
sure.
that
For
as
sure.
they're not there because there's something wrong with me, because all I have to do is be better and then they'll be there. But if it's their fault and they provide for me, I'm screwed.
Oh, and okay, I'll go even one step deeper. Big sibling rivalry. So my older sister growing up, it was like she was like golden child, I was like bad kid. So that what you just said pushed a button because I played basketball and I was on the step team and nobody ever came to anything, but my sister was a cheerleader and they would make a big deal and like go to her cheer competitions. So when I was growing up, that led to like a huge rebellion around like 14, 15. I went like anti mom and dad. I just started doing my own thing. And it was because of that. I just felt like they only had enough like love, energy, money for her. And then when it came to me, it was like we gave it all away already. So sorry.
Yeah. No, don't be so. This is amazing. I could talk to you for 24 hours about this. So I often use the example that when people think of childhood trauma, and I've actually stopped using that word because people are like, oh, that wasn't me. But I often use the example, I've done it hundreds of times, that your little sister can come home from the hospital from being born, and you can internalize that, oh, my parents are spending a lot of time with her. They must love her more than me. Therefore, I'm not lovable. And that could create addiction later in your life. So
Yes.
why are we talking about all this? We're
Yes.
talking about all this because I want you, the listener, to understand that you didn't have to have a terrible childhood to have things that impacted you that are messing up your life today that you don't even know are
It could
controlling
be
your life.
little things that
Yeah.
you never felt was trauma. Like you already said, it's okay. That's just what it was. You know, in your head, you already made it everything okay. But you're totally right. Those little things do still bother you deep, deep,
Yeah.
deep, deep down.
Yeah. So we're going to get real deep here now, Toddy. One of the 12 questions on the self-love quiz. And if you haven't taken it, do yourself a favor, do your family a favor, your business a favor if you have one, and go to unlocklimitlessyou.com/quiz, take the quiz. One of the 12 questions is, do you have trouble experiencing deeply connected, intimate relationships with someone you feel safe with? Do you remember what your answer was?
Yes.
Always.
Yes. Always.
Always. Let's talk about that. So have you gone from one relationship to the next and it's been rocky and bad?
Yeah, definitely.
Tell me a little bit about the patterns in those relationships.
So the pattern for me seems to be like when it becomes too much, I'm just like, I can't do this. And I just walk away. And I guess I'm kind of right now in between. is it because it was never worth it to me to go through those things and it just wasn't like what I really wanted? So when things got too rocky or too hard, I just, chose to just move on? Or do I really have some issue with resolving conflict in a productive way? Cuz a couple relationships I had, they weren't bad people by any means. They were good people. It was just the fighting, the arguing, I just can't do it. I don't know.
What when you say that when they became too much, what does that mean?
Like, like a big argument and someone's like yelling at me and I was just like, "Oh no, like I'm not about to be yelled at." And then I'll mentally check out of the whole thing versus, working through it somehow.
Yep. So given our talk over these last 20 minutes and given your childhood and the fact that you internalize a lot of this stuff and said, my how did my parents deal with conflict? They physically harmed me, right? Um, they were gone a lot, so I felt alone. And you didn't say this, but a lot of kids feel abandoned. In school, I didn't. I couldn't. I couldn't. No matter what, I couldn't do enough. Oh, and by the way, there's 4 roles that kids take on in families when they don't feel seen, heard, and understood. One is the carer role. They're always doing, doing, doing for everyone else. The second is the sick one. They've got asthma. They've got rashes. The third is the perfectionist, which it sounds like you might have done with basketball and whatever and the other sport. And then the fourth is the rebellion. So it seems like you played a couple of those roles, right?
Wow, that's crazy.
And your sister probably played a different role.
She was 2 and I'm the rebel and the perfectionist and she's the caregiver and the sick one.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
And,
She's older than me, but that was like
and so
I've never heard of that.
we do those things
Wow.
so that we can get attention and feel heard. And now knowing what you know, can you now have a better understanding of why you have trouble dealing with conflict in relationships?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I don't You know what's crazy that you say that? Like my biggest thing, that's crazy. And I never put it together like that because I never looked at my parents and my relationships. But when I was younger, I would do anything to avoid getting hit. And I think when I start getting into these arguments where it gets heated, maybe like internally, I think it's going to end up into a physical altercation. So I'm just like, no. Because guys, when you guys get really mad, it's like,
Yeah, it gets
you,
scary.
it's scary.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about arguments and conflicts are it's never about the actual argument or conflict. It's always the two people going back to their childhood and bringing in a meaning on that actual conflict. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
So if someone on the way to you're going to pick up pizza tonight for your child, someone cuts you off and flicks you off, you get so pissed off. That has nothing to do with what they just did because someone could flick me off and cut me off and I'm not going to get pissed off. I wouldn't go into a rage. I might get a little bit. The point of that is that it doesn't have to do with the actual situation. It always is our brain going to protect ourselves, to bring in something. So when the guy starts yelling at you, you might think, oh my God, I got to do anything to avoid. And the best thing I can do, because I am an adult now and I can run. And that's what you do. You run as opposed to, hey, John, hey, Jimmy, what you just did made me feel sad. It's not your fault, but can we discuss it so that I can heal and we can become closer as a couple? That's part of our joy regenerator. That's another resource we give at unlocklimitlessyou.com/joy. You can download it for free, but it literally is a way to process conflict because now in my relationship, in my intimate relationship with Yvonne, conflict actually brings us closer together. In my past marriages, oh my gosh, Toddy, like conflict would lead me to like 3 days of just complete, I'd fight and I'd make it their fault. And then I'd run for 3 days and I would be like cold and distant for 3 days because my subconscious brain was saying a couple things, was saying, see, I told you weren't enough and she's telling you weren't enough. So I had to protect myself. My survival was at stake.
That's a fact. That's really good, Brad.
Was there a parent that when you look at like men that you've matched with, are they close to one of the parents that you had the most issue with?
Yeah, my mom.
Yeah.
Angry. I always end up with people with temper problems.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how does it they seem so nice in the beginning, so perfect, and then you start, like, conflicts come up, and then they're just, like, blow up angry, and I'm like, "How does it always end up like this?"
Yeah. Do you want me to explain how it ends up like this?
Please.
So, our subconscious mind, which controls 95% of your behavior and is directly responsible for you selecting the men in your life, its only point in your body mind is to keep you alive. How does it keep you alive? It keeps you in situations it knows are familiar. So, number one, it's selecting people who are just like your mom because it says, I don't care if you're happy or sad. That's not its job. Its job is to keep you alive. So even though my mom yelled at me, hit me, and I didn't like it, I'm still alive. So I'm going to keep recreating that. There's another school of thought that says, I'm going to go pick someone like my mom subconsciously. You're not doing it consciously because I want to heal the wounds and I want her to love me like she never did. And you
Mm,
hope that this person can be that. But
dang.
no one can love you like you can. So you've already started to do some work. As you continue to do the work and you get to extreme love, self-love, what's going to happen is the red flags already come up early in your relationship with the anger. I know they just don't pop out of nowhere, but your subconscious mind says it's okay. Let's make up some reason why it's okay because I feel safe here. You actually feel safe in a strange way.
You're
So
right, though.
as you continue to do the work, you're going to be those red flags. You're going to be like, oh, no, 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 no. 5 minutes with someone, you're going to see that they have low self-esteem and you're going to be like, I'm out. What do you think?
I know, I think it's just so crazy how you said that because there's definitely something to be said for feeling safe with people like that because there's, like, this internal thing that, yeah, my mom was like that, and that although it was scary and it was really hard to survive, and I left as soon as I turned 18. There's nothing in me that wanted to be in that situation. For some reason, I tie how she is into safety and protecting your family because that's what I see. She was always that. My dad was never that. My dad's super passive, quiet. He actually just got grumpy as he got older and starts, standing up for himself now. But when we were younger, what he would let whatever happen. But my mom was always the one going off on the power company or, she was that person. But she goes crazy. Well, she used to. She's like older, obviously, too now and sweet. But when I was younger, she was crazy. And I always saw that as like she was like defending our family, protecting our family, but it was way too much.
Yeah.
And
Can you defend your family without going like ballistically crazy on someone?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just so funny. And she was a waitress my whole life. So I watched some people be rude to her. So I have this like super respect for people. And you're right, the red flags do pop up and I do make like everything you said right now. As you said it, I could literally visualize an instance I did it. And I ignored a red flag or I made an excuse on a red flag because of the situation, the context. I was like, well, because it was like this, it's okay, but they're not normally like that.
Yeah.
They're not like that with me. And you're right. You're so right.
Yeah, my first marriage, early major red flag. I completely overlooked it. But it was a red flag that I was used to at my home because my dad would lose his mind too and go crazy. And she did that one time early on in our relationship, and I completely overlooked it. And it didn't come out for years, but when it came out, oh my gosh, it was actually the ending of our relationship. So no regrets because I have two beautiful children from it. But yeah, we create, most human beings create the suffering in our lives, and it's not our fault. Like your brain, go to the DSM manual, the psychology manual that has like 1,000 different disorders, right? There's no disorder in anyone's brain. Your brain's doing exactly what it should be. The thing is, it just doesn't know the difference between you as a 6-year-old and you today as a complete adult. And that's part of the work. When you can separate yourself and bring you forward and say, hey, I'm safe now. I don't need to go find guys that are going to be angry. They need to go do the work on themselves. I'm going to go find someone who's already done the work and is, when conflict arises, they don't have to yell, because why are they yelling? Why are they going into their craziness? It's because of their hurt and their pain, and they're just trying to survive. So it's not their fault either.
It's a cycle. It's just a cycle. And when you said it's both of your 6-year-old selves, that visual
Yeah.
is so powerful, and you're so right. It's
Yeah.
both of your 6-year-old selves trying to be loved the way you want to be loved, or you think you're supposed to be loved. And you're angry, or you're scared, or you're running, or you're attacking, but it's for a reason. And it's not even you, or it's not even what you want. It's not even the result you're trying to get. You're in this relationship because you want a good result. You're not in it to waste time, but and that's so powerful, Brad. And when you said that, to be honest, I instantly, like, I never ever thought about that. I instantly linked it to money habits that I got from my mom. When you said, like, that safety, and even how I told you, like, when I was a waitress, I would, like, have this little hoard of money that for a waitress was a lot at that time, or, like, even today or whenever. And I had a money coach for a while, and they would try to help me with this, because it was like, there's this fear that is so normalized when you're a child, fear of everything, that you have to figure out how to stop living in that. But to stop living in that, you have to literally become this new person, and it's
Yeah.
very hard.
Yeah, we're only born with two fears: fear of falling down and fear of loud noises. Everything else is learned through our environment, and it's not our fault. So but what happens is, a 47-year-old, I was still living in that fear that no one's going to love me, that I've got to go buy a boat and take it to the Bahamas, that I've got to make millions of dollars, because if not, no one's going to love me. And then if they don't love me, I'm going to be kicked out of the tribe and I'm going to die. So this is all around the subconscious mind trying to survive. It's really, really powerful. The greatest gift that any individual can give their child is to break the multi-generational curse. And what is that? It's just the constant passing down of these behaviors, right? If you lack self-love, there's absolutely no way, no matter how good of a parent you think you are, that you're not negatively affecting your child in some way, shape, or form. So how do you break this curse? You teach your child how to love themselves unconditionally. How can you teach a child how to love themselves unconditionally if you don't love yourself unconditionally? You can't.
Yeah.
So the greatest gift you can ever give your child is to do the work of yourself on yourself, to get rid of these self-limiting beliefs that you should have, that helped you get through childhood stress, but aren't serving you, or are really just destroying you or negatively impacting your life.
Yep. That's profound. It's got me really thinking now.
Yeah. And I hope we've got a lot of other people thinking. And I want to thank you for being vulnerable. This has honestly been one of my favorite episodes, because we got into, like, the meat of your childhood and how it's affecting you now. And it's also helped you. It's driven you to make money. But what a lot of people, a lot of clients I work with, they're like, well, if I start loving myself, then I'm going to lose my business drive. No, not at all. Then you can shift, instead of trying to make money to make yourself feel better, you start to make money, you start to try to make an impact, and that's when the money really comes. So your childhood issues have given you a lot of pluses and a lot of minuses. One of the pluses it's given you is, how do I scale and grow a business? Like, that was also survival. So now, Tadi, what we want to do is, we want to not take that away. We want to keep that growing. But what good is having $10 million in the bank if you're divorced and home alone every night without a companion? Like, that's part of life, right? It's having a deeply connected, intimate relationship. So now let's use all the positive of your childhood, and let's just clear out the negative. That's what I do for people. And that's what you're on your journey, because you obviously have done work and you're heading in that direction. And the more work you do, the more magical life is going to become.
Just like my brain is, like, going in so many different ways, but it's crazy how we put away, like, a lot of people will be like, oh, this, like, dumb, touchy-feely childhood stuff, like, F that, I'm just going to get this money and focus on what really matters, real life, da 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 da. But it's like, no, this improves and allows you to actually make money. Before you love yourself, what are you? You're chaotic, you're inconsistent, you blow all the money you make anyway, because you're chasing this next thing,
Yes.
vanity, living in vanity. And never, wanted to be that person, but you just wake up one day and you are that person because you ignored your feelings. You're just acting every day out of this like anger and this, and it's not limited to men or women. It's not limited to anything. It just is what it is because of we all grew up in these really unique situations and we have to become a different person. I really appreciate and admire you for what you do because even in real estate, hearing people's life stories, it can be difficult for me because I'm really empathetic. I can only imagine, the stuff you help people work through. It's a lot, life's a lot for some people.
So you have an amazing coaching program that teaches people how to make millions of dollars. And I'm going to ask you a client success story here in a second as we wrap up. But again, what good is teaching someone how to make millions of dollars if they've got a porn addiction or a drug addiction or they drink too much or they're in shitty relationships, right? So the gift that you're going to be able to give people is as you continue on your journey, Tadi, is not only can you show them, here's how to go make a gob of money, a ton of money, but I'm going to show you something even more important. Let me show you how to get that feeling that you think money's going to bring you today. And if you get it, that feeling today, then the chances of you making money go through the roof because money doesn't bring you happiness. Happiness actually brings you money.
Yeah.
So I know you're changing lives like crazy. Tell us a little bit of what you are doing, teaching people, and maybe give us like a really knock your socks off like success story of a student you've worked with.
Yeah, definitely. So I basically get everyone who's been to like all of the coaching programs about flipping houses or learning how to do real estate, but they never learn how to actually do it themselves. I think for some reason when I have people come to me, they've already spent a ton of money on like VA companies and all these, I'm going to give you leads and all these different things. And they never learn how to actually build a system for themselves by themselves. It's just a one man operation. And that's how I started. So I do like cohort classes. We'll do like 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And I started out doing that just because I had a YouTube video go viral, really funny, but I did my first deal. It was 15,000. I made a YouTube video to kind of rub it in someone's face a little bit, I'll be honest. And it ended up going viral. I was dating someone at the time right before COVID, and he was like, that real estate, it's a scam. It's never going to work. Da, 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 da. And I just, I stopped and I blocked him on everything, but I was like, I'm going to post this YouTube video and I know he's going to see it. So I posted the YouTube video. It goes viral. People start following me on Instagram and they're asking me to teach them how to do it. And I was like, I can't teach anyone. I just did my first deal. I ended up doing like 13 deals in my first 5 or 6 months. And I did a Zoom class and 50 people showed up. And then people started asking for the recording. I said, okay, I'll sell it for $100. That $100 thing in the next year and a half ended up making like 80 grand. Whoa. Just on the link in my bio. So that's when I said, oh, wow. A lot of people want this. And people who bought that $100 thing were asking me to do like a longer thing. So I started doing 30-day cohort class kind of things. Never, ever, ever said I'm going to be a real estate coach. Like I didn't want to do it, but I just started doing it, started making money doing that too. And it was cool. A lot of people, like in 2021, one of my first cohort class students, Jim, he had been trying to wholesale for 2 years, but he lives in Los Angeles. So similar to me being in Vegas, being in a major metro where you have like Zillow and Open Door making home offers, it was tough to cold call and get a deal. In markets like Cleveland and Indianapolis and St. Louis, like these Midwestern markets, it was people are answering the phone. People are having conversations with you. Houses are 20, 30K. And there's nationwide investors that are buying those specific types of properties just to put their money in like little banks, basically. So I stumbled across this niche and I was able to help people a lot of times in major metro markets find the right virtual market, learn the market, learn what type of leads to pull, how to do that yourself, how to set your system up, cold call, hire a VA. So basically all of the steps. So Jim, on literally his second day, ended up locking up a deal in Oklahoma City. 2 years trying to wholesale in LA, wow. Failing, cold calling, doing everything. Second day, locks up a deal in Oklahoma City. He made $12,500 his first month. And within like 12 weeks or so, he quit McDonald's. He was a manager at McDonald's for like 12 years. quit McDonald's. And now he, to this day, this is 2021, but to this day makes multiple six figures, running his own business. Oklahoma City was his market for like over a year and a half. He added Texas, and he's crushing it. And then more recently, Cynthia Mene, like we did a live last week. So it's very, very recent. You can look on my Instagram. But she was trying to wholesale for like over a year. She bought all these courses. She couldn't get it. And my whole thing is like, just do the thing first, talk to sellers, get that like ick out, get the fear out, and just talk to sellers. It's not that hard. Once they start doing it, you get deals. It's just what happens. You get deals. So she did her first 2 deals, and she just did her first deal February 2024. She's already 85K. She will end the year with over 150K, like in net profit to her.
Bam.
First year ever. Like
unbelievable.
Crazy.
You're a rock star. Where can they reach you, rock star?
On Instagram is where I really hang out, Tadi Virtual. And I mean, I do so much stuff for free, honestly, on YouTube. It's Early Risers Morning Show. But if you kind of go back, I have like 140 hours of just free virtual wholesale information. So like dive in if that's something you're interested in, or follow me. I do a lot of stuff for free, and I'm really about bootstrapping, empowering yourself, learning it well so you can do it yourself and not always having to rely on other people, and freedom.
Awesome. Well, Tadi, that was an amazing show. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for helping me unlock some of that stuff. It was, super helpful. Like, you have no idea.
Awesome. So that concludes another episode. That concludes another episode of How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs. Remember, I'm on a mission to help 1 million people change their lives by getting rid of these self-limiting beliefs that are buried in your subconscious mind that we spent a half an hour talking about. And so that you can live a life that's thriving with deeply connected relationships. So I can't do it alone. I need your help. So if you like this content, please rate it, share it, review it, whatever you can do to help me. I'd appreciate it. Until next time, love heals all.
Hit subscribe if you don't want to miss out on more life-changing content. And if you're struggling, you don't have to. Go to bradchandler.com/contact. There, you can join the Facebook community of like-minded entrepreneurs, and you'll see a button to schedule your freedom and happiness call. See you on the next episode.